Well, I think that's as good a place to stop as anyone the epic music hits that point, don't you? Me, oh my. That worked out alarmingly good. Oh, hang on. Let's press that as well. Boom. Hey. After all that, I am a wallop. I have left my water bottle next door. That was not the smartest move. There we go. After all that, I walked came all that way in, got myself hyped up and started everything, and then realised I didn't actually have any water, and also the camera is all over the shop. There we go. That's better. Hey! It's the last one of the season. Doesn't matter at this point. Everything's going to burn. Why am I now hearing myself come back? Which is a bit weird. There we go, the piss has sorted itself out. No, why is that? Why am I hearing myself come through? Let's just... There we go. Let's try amending some settings there. Either way, hello. No, I'm still coming through and I can still hear myself, which is really annoying. It might not be coming through for you guys, but it's definitely coming through for me. Huh. Oh well, we'll try and roll with it. Andrew, I knew you'd have an answer for that one, and fair play on it. Either way, hello. We'll give people a minute or two more. Make sure to share the stream out, as it's occurred to me to do some bits and pieces. But yes, no graphics, and no magic word either. There we go. Yeah, no echo. There's definitely an echo on my end, which I think it's not coming through for you, but it is for me, G. So, but thank you for clearing that up, because it is very, very weird. Yep, plenty of hockey happening, Kev. Apologies, folks. I've just realised I've not posted the link in one of the places I usually post a link, so I'm just going to very quickly do that. If nothing else, just because there is obviously a game going on right now that we are keeping an eye on. Which is what it is on that front. Interesting. Either way, we will leave that as that, and we will, just because of the time, I'm just going to very quickly make sure my Twitter's up on my phone, just because. Lord knows what's going on. We probably, for the last time properly this season, so I'm just going to shuffle that back just a little bit so I've got a bit more room. We should probably do the thing. Guys, gals, and the gender fluid and all beyond the binary, it is Wednesday night. It is 8 PM, and welcome back to the end of season. BOTW, What's Current Stream. My name is Anthony Russell, here to take you through the weird, wonderful, and wacky world that is the National Ice Hockey League structure here in Great Britain. We focus on the National Division. That is our bread and butter. That is our home port. But of course, we are here to take you through absolutely anything and everything from the National Ice Hockey League structure, from Leeds to Lee Valley. Nobody gets left out. But of course, that means we look at the National Division as well as Division 1 and Division 2 in the north and in the south. And boy, well, not much Division 2. Division 2 is done. But we are here. It is the final week of the NIHL season for 24-25. That means, of course, that we will be sort of heading into hibernation, but we'll confirm what we're doing a little bit later on in the show. And like I say, I am still ever so slightly at a bit of a weird angle. I don't know whether it's just because of that. There we go. Check out the new Huskies. Bear with me a second, folks, just because that's going to be funny. There we go, that's better. Check out the Huskies' new scoreboard on our page, mate. Let's have a look there, Nicky. 4,000 and counting. I haven't looked on Oh, there we go. Let's have a quick squeeze. Now I've got to have the volume down, or it's going to cause a massive amount of... Oh, see, that's pretty... That looks pretty sharp. Big shout to Lee Mercer and the folk over at the Huskies for getting that one sorted out. Look at that. So, tonight, housekeeping before we do anything else. There are no graphics tonight. No graphics, no box scores or anything like that. We're just going to put that one to one side just because there is so much chat going on. Impressive for NIHL too, he says. I wonder. But yeah, there's a lot to talk about tonight. So we are going to... there we go. That's just a bit better there. We're going to leave the graphics to one side. We're just going to chat about everything that happened over the course of the weekend. There's a lot of news going on as well. I don't know even how long we're going to be online for tonight. We'll try and head for our usual bits and pieces. Because, of course, like I said, there is some massive, massive news that we need to talk about that obviously came out over the weekend. We have the weekend to talk about, into the bargain as well. We will talk a little bit as well about the Elite League weekend, as I see John O'Bullard heading into the chat as well. But yeah, there's just a bunch of different bits and pieces. But we will kick off with some housekeeping if my connection will actually stay stable for more than a few seconds. I'm not entirely sure what's happening here. Bear with me 2 seconds, folks, just because I think something has gone sideways here and I need to turn something off. So bear with me a second, just because my connection keeps dipping in and out and I think it's due to something I've pressed. So bear with me a second, just because my connection is yo-yoing all over the place and I need to try and get it sorted out. But yes, trophies, bits and pieces won. But yeah, like I say, just bear with me a second, folks, just while I try and rectify the issue that I think is causing some of these bits to lag. So hold on a moment. But yeah, that scoreboard, Nicky, looks massively impressive. I can't imagine how much Lee and the guys at the Huskies spent getting that one online, but great that it's done. It looked, like you say, mate, it looks massively impressive for Ali Pally. I'm really, really pleased for them they managed to get it sorted out. It's just about that kind of that professionalisation bit up at Lee Valley as well. They got the plexi put in instead of the netting. They've now got that scoreboard as well, which looks fantastic. But it also as well opens up the ability for Lee Valley to be used for other bits and pieces hockey wise as well. Hopefully the Vampires get to use it. Hopefully the Greyhounds get to use it. The juniors and stuff like that too. I think that'd be really impressive. I am just checking, because what I need it to do, yeah, it's done something I wasn't asking it to do. We're going to turn that off. There we go. My VPN has automatically connected and it is nuking the connection, which is what we do not want it to do. Really sorry about this, folks, because this is causing a massive issue at my end where everything is lagging all over the place. What I want it to do is I want it to turn off, and it's not turning off at the moment, which is really frustrating. If I press that button there, is that going to do anything? Really sorry, folks. Last one of the season, and it's just absolutely pooing the bed all over the shop, which is really, really frustrating. It's doing something I do not want it to do. Just bear with me. Bear with. Yeah, I appreciate it's probably fine for everybody else. It's not fine for me. There we go. That's better. There we go. That's what I needed. It was fine at everybody else's end, but at my end, Jono, everything started to lag horribly. So, right, we are now behind schedule, but it does not matter because there's less hockey to talk about anyway. Either way, what we will talk about is the fact that we will do, very, very briefly, some housekeeping. He says, just double checking the stream itself. Everything's back on. Brilliant. Right, so, housekeeping. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for all things related to the NIHL. New piece on there, which, as you can appreciate, is very, very big. We have broken down the first press release from the new operators of the Basingstoke Bison. Park that. move it to one side, because we'll be talking about that more in a little bit. But of course, if you want to check back across the 24-25 season, you can go and have a look at Banners on the Road. That is my in-depth look at every single game I've gone to across the entirety of the season. I missed one weekend. I missed a couple of weekends from family bits and pieces, but I also missed one weekend from being sick. But I've just about averaged out roughly one game a week for the entirety of the season. That's pretty awesome. You've got hockey stories, which are long-form, in-depth pieces of content. Some are written, some are audio-visual, telling stories from across the world of ice hockey, from the 19th century to the present day, behind the Iron Curtain, into war, into World War II, and beyond. More coming of those over the summer, as I've talked about, because the end of my season ended up being really busy. I don't know about you, certainly was very busy for Jono. He's probably still tired from his bits and pieces, because I know I am from mine. Also on the website, though, you've got the back catalogue of the LBOTW podcast. You've got Dice Hockey, our free to download ice hockey game for your tabletop that you can play at home. There's 14 years worth of content now over at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. The other thing you need to know is, of course, the BOTW YouTube channel. Head down, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, like the video, share the video, check out all of the stuff that we've got on there. Every old What's Current streams you can check back through bits and pieces across the season. Interviews with the movers and shakers of British and world hockey. And yeah, plenty of stuff to check out there. Subscribe, keep the algorithm hamster happy, fat and fed. Either way, he says very quickly, just checking to make sure there's no more news, because I'm mildly terrified, something else, because there's a lot of stuff that's come out today, even in the fact that our friends from Review from the Bridge, of course, there was a day back in the day where I was their lead-in. I'd be at 8 o'clock and they'd be at 9 o'clock on a Wednesday. And they were my lead-in today, of course, with the fantastic news you've just seen Patrick Smith interview Owen Nolan, former first overall NHL draft pick, coming to the Hospice game in Belfast this June. Fantastic news. Great for the guys at for Patrick at Viva the Bridge to be able to interview a proper old school legend of the NHL, and of course Belfast born lad, upping the number of West Belfast boys to 2 who've been on the podcast now. So congratulations on that one to Patrick and the guys there. And then of course we need to point out the fact that we are being on YouTube, of course. It means you get the chat over here. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything you want to chuck in the chat as we're talking our way through hockey. Join in the conversation. It's much more fun when you guys do join in. It is brilliant when you do. Just stick your bits and pieces in there. But of course, if you are going to use the chat, please remember the golden rule here at BOTW. DBAD, don't be a dick. Be respectful of other people's thoughts and feelings. We're going to have a jolly good time. So, where do we start? That's my question to you, everybody. Do we go in chronological order from across the weekend, or do we just kind of mix and match? Stick in the chat what you like very quickly while I have some water. Do we go from start to finish of the weekend, or do we just kind of pick and choose bits and pieces? And if you want me to pick and choose, what should we pick and choose first? There's the question there. I would very, very much... what we'll do, let's see if we can do this very, very quickly. Let's see if we can get this to work. There we go. What should we do first? Chronological of the weekend. Pick your poison. Right, what we need then... no, we don't need that. Actually, we do need that. Let's do that. Let's press that button there. Right, you got a minute. You got a minute to figure out what you want. Hit the poll. Let's see if we can get the poll. Order. Yeah, we're throwing everything out the window tonight, Chris. Go check out Chris's bits and pieces, his photographs from this weekend at Blue Line Photography if you haven't... EIH first. I've got a back. The Cat's Whiskers recording tonight, Jono. Chronological of the weekend. I'll tell you what though, as you're working that out, because of course we are usually a National Ice Hockey League thing podcast, we will talk about very briefly then the Elite League and the utter ridiculousness of the weekend. So of course, congratulations to Danny Stewart and everybody at the Nottingham Panthers on their playoff victory. For anybody living under a rock, 23-24 was an incredibly tough year to be a Nottingham fan, and we don't really massively need to go into the reason as why, but the rebound this year, I said a couple of times that the Panthers have kind of got their roar back. Yes, I'm aware Panthers don't actually roar, it's fine, but yeah, the Panthers have been much more like the Panthers this year. I had the pleasure of commentating on 3 Panthers games across at different points of the season. So I saw Ryan Bednard in goal, I had Jason Grande in goal, I had Jason Grande in goal in the playoffs, put the puck onto Ethan Strang's stick at the in the last few minutes of the quarter final there. But ultimately, I don't think anybody kind of begrudges Nottingham the win. Of course, Saturday, Cardiff blowing out Belfast, which was a massive surprise, and then Nottingham squeaking by the Sheffield Steelers. Sam Hare waving goodbye to hockey that week, last weekend, as well as waving goodbye to the Steelers from the postseason. We then have the third, fourth place game, which is, as we've said before, the stupidest game in British hockey, and should never happen, and they should figure something else out. What we ended up figuring out. Right, we're going to end the poll there. So chronological of the weekend has won. Sleep got 14%. Fair play. So we'll go chronologically in a minute once we finished off the Elite League. I've said before that there's a bunch of different things you could do. Go back and check out Grand Ideas on banners on the wall.wordpress.com for my tongue-in-cheek idea as to what they should do. With that third, fourth place going, so we won't talk about it because nobody cares. But then in the final, of course, we had the absolute marathon that was the Nottingham Panthers and the Cardiff Devils, where the Panthers were 3-0 up, pulled back to 3-0 by the Devils. Nottingham thought they won it in overtime, yard sale on the ice, goal overturned. Cardiff thought they won it in overtime, yard sale on the ice, that got overturned. And then eventually the Nottingham Panthers did the business, and Sam Hare goes walking off into the sunset with an Elite League playoff trophy in his back pocket, which means, of course, in the Elite League, it means the Belfast Giants are your League and Challenge Cup winners, and the Nottingham Panthers closed the door on the Elite League for 24-25 with the playoff championship in their own backyard. And of course, Jono, who's lurking around in the chat, got to commentate on the third, fourth place playoff. Well done, mate, for putting your absolute all into that game, irrespective of what we think of it. Got the opportunity to commentate on the playoff weekend in his home barn, where he commentates on the Panthers week in, week out, but didn't have to commentate on the Panthers, which is probably even better, and he even got to hold the trophy as well. So massive lot of love to all the folk up in Nottingham. Like I say, it's been a rough sort of 18 months or so, but they kind of come out the other side of it, and hopefully now we will kind of see, it's been sort of very Steelers, very Giants dominated for the last little while. The Panthers kind of breaking through in that. The Devils winning the Continental Cup this year as well. Coventry kind of rebounding and being the chaotic Coventry Blaze under Kevin Moore has been a lot of fun. Guildford will hopefully be better next year if they don't have 1,000 injuries and get some actual consistency. Fife will hopefully be all right. Manchester will probably see some changes. The Elite League has been really, really interesting this year. The opportunity to see more of it. I still massively dispute the idea that the gap between the Elite League and the National Division is as big as everybody seems to think it is. I will dispute that because I've had the opportunity to watch a lot of both with my own eyes this year. The gap is there to be bridged. The Elite League has a responsibility to help bridge that gap into the bargain, as does the National Division. But the Elite League's been brilliant this year. The title race going to the final 5 minutes. The playoffs going into the dark, almost, at some point. So it's really, really great. Congrats, Jono. Go do the cat's whiskers. Either way, then, chronologically, we go back to this weekend because that's what you guys talked about in terms of the NIHL. So, yes, there was rumblings, of course, with the fact that the rink in Basingstoke was being worked on. Were the Bison supposedly going to be ready for the 25-26 season? Because Planet Ice had said that the rink would be ready in the summer. On Good Friday, then, we all got the news that a lot of us have been waiting for, that the Bison are back. The Basingstoke Bison will return to the ice for 2025-26. But not just in the National Division. They will return under new management. So the thing from my understanding, still, Planet Ice own the team. It is being managed and operated by this new management team, which is Steve Nell and Rob Furman. Now, for folk who are not aware, those two are the main shareholders of the Swindon Wildcats, and of course the Nell family also operate the Leeds Knights. I've gone into more depth about this in the piece that came out this morning, which is our BOTW breakdown, where we've taken the first press release from the new owners, not the Planet Ice one, not the National Division one, but we've taken the Planet Ice, the new one from the new owners, and broken it down bit by bit, as well as giving people a bit of a history, because some newer folk may not necessarily understand exactly how we got there. So Friday, the day we're all heading up to Coventry, and we said here last week on this stream, what will the news be about the Bison? And I said, if we're going to hear it, we will hear it this weekend coming into Coventry. And we did. Steve Nell and Rob Furman are going to be the men leading it forward. There are issues with that. Another team, 3 teams in a 12-team division owned by one group. From a sporting integrity perspective, it's problematic. There is no sidestepping around that. The BOTW has reported on issues at both Swindon and Leeds in the past, and I will stand on the reporting that I have made on both of those things, on all of those bits and pieces. There is no change on that. I've also been able to have adult conversations with Steve Nell. I've never spoken to Rob Furman, but I've had adult conversation about Steve Nell. He's aware of what happens here, so we can kind of make our peace and move forward on that, because ultimately Swindon lost their rink for 2.5 months and are modestly stable as an organisation. The Leeds Knights are the standard in the National Division, have been for a while. So the Bison coming back, as I keep joking about how they've been standing in the mist, just out of sight, ready to return. Well, the Bison apparently now are heading back out of the mist into the light. And it seems that if you're going to be under a banner, the Nell banner is the one to be, potentially. Like I said, there are questions you can have about sporting integrity, and British hockey has, in some ways, always managed to kind of square that circle with itself. It's not ideal, but from the National Division perspective, maybe it is the right thing for right now for the majority, in some ways. Potentially, of course, it does cause problems down the line. But in terms of the new ownership side of it, they started Leeds from scratch, pretty much. Yes, the Chiefs had been there before, but what they've been able to build with the Knights from nothing has been very impressive. Basingstoke, however, comes with history. Basingstoke comes with backstory and with problems, and we've been run by other people before, and we know that bad things can happen. That's just the nature of it. Steve Nell is none of those previous people that caused problems in Basingstoke. He deserves, and so he and Rob deserve, the opportunity to go forward as new owners of this club. Stewards of this club is probably the better way to describe it, because ultimately no club really belongs. Intellectual property assets belong to individuals. The club belongs to the community that stands around it. Fascinated to see where they go, because the Bison, having been away for 2 years, are a clean slate. Does Ashley Tate come back? Does he stay with the Bees? Do we get somebody completely new in? Does a old face who's known to people come in? Does a coach step up from South One? Do we get somebody drop down from the Elite League? There are a bunch of different scenarios here. As a Basingstoke fan, you regular viewers of Banners on the Wall will know very well. Everything kind of gets approached with a little bit of a cautious optimism, because everything we've ever done here is that we don't knock down. We try to build up, but we do look at things in a critically analytical way. Is this going to work? Because there are questions. An organisational group has run 2 teams fine, but can it run 3? What happens in terms of time and bits and pieces? Because of course you don't want to favour any one team over the others, but what happens if resources become a problem? Does one get favoured over the other? There's a bunch of questions that ultimately are only going to be answered by time and observation. And so, as I put at the bottom of the piece, I wish Rob and Steve well, because I want them to do well, because the Basingstoke Bison, irrespective of all the other bits that I do everywhere else, Basingstoke are my team. They are the team I support. They are the people who, that is the club that when I came back from Germany, I tripped and I fell over and I said, I want to go watch hockey, and I landed in Basingstoke, and that was me set for life. And the last couple of years have been really good, I think, for Banners on the Wall in some ways, because the cord was cut, and it allowed me to go and do different things in different places, and see different things, and commentate in different places, and get to do commentary at all in different places, which is pretty crazy. I do not know what the future holds for me, nor do I know what the future holds for the Basingstoke Bison, irrespective of where I potentially could end up. And trust me, if we can make everything work in the right way, I will go home. Ultimately, I want the people who are running my club now to do it well, and I want the community to get back behind the club, and I will get back behind the club in the best way I possibly can, with the time and the resources and the effort and the energy that I have. In terms of banners on the wall, I am unsure as to whether it is good for the website to go back to being Bison focused. I'll be honest about that. And that's the thing I haven't quite set my mind on yet going forward. I think banners on the wall has benefited from branching out more, and I need to find a way how we do that. I think that's the thing. I've not quite worked out 4, 5, 6 days into this new era, is how I can keep that going. And you'll need to be bear with me, I think, a little bit on that, because I've got some time and I've got some thinking to do, and I've got some decisions that I probably need to make into the bargain too. So just bear with me on that one. But I will always back Basingstoke Bison till I die. There is no big shocker on that one. I know Nicky's in the chat as well, and I'm not even originally from Basingstoke. Nicky's a Basingstoke boy, so for those folk who were who grew up with the club, I didn't even get that privilege. I dropped in at the age of 20, and at 21, and it's kind of run my life pretty much ever since. But yeah, for folk who grew up with it, I can only imagine what it felt like for it to disappear and now to be on the verge of coming back. The beer bottle. For those of you unfamiliar with the beer bottle, there is a beer bottle that sits in the corner of my kitchen. I was given a crate of beer at the end of the season by the supporters club as a thank you for all of the social media bits I used to do for the Bison. Thank you for your work this season. And over that summer, I slowly worked my way through that crate of beer, and then left one because that was my connection back. And I said I would not touch it until we were back, or until the door was closed. And well, it looks like I'm going to get to open that bottle at some point. Jamie talks about being emotional, and yeah, you're right. It's going to be very, very emotional. But the time is coming. That beer is going to taste absolutely disgusting, having been sat in my kitchen for 2 years. Don't care. I mean, Nicky, I think you're probably right, and in my heart, I'm leaning towards branching out more, but it's just about finding the right way to do that, finding the balance. With a wife and a growing child, and all the things he wants to be able to do, and being able to support him properly too. So we'll figure that out. But the Bison being back was the big news of Friday, and I turned up in Coventry as I usually do. I stay with friends when I go to Coventry. Which was which was fun, if nothing else, because of the road being shut and driving through a load of back roads to get to their house. But then we rolled into Saturday, and the two semi-finals of the two playoff semi-finals as to what's going on there. Commentary. For those of you folk who watch from home, would be really fascinated to hear what you thought about the commentary, and you can be critical. It's absolutely fine. But yeah, commentating over the course of the weekend, the Drop the Puck guys doing the tech behind the scenes, Joe Scutts and I on the call for all 4 games at Coventry this weekend. It was tiring. I think the thing, and it sounds really, really cheesy to say, doing stuff with Joe is easy. And it's mostly because we've been friends for such a long period of time that even though we have only commentated together a handful of times, we kind of know how each other works in that sort of sense. Natural pauses get left. I know how to fill in the gaps. I know when Joe's needing to take a breath, so I know that I need to get ready to take a breath to then step in and do those bits and pieces as well. And it wasn't perfect at all. There was certainly a moment in the North, in the Division 1 Championship game, Tommy Spraggins poked at a puck that I thought wasn't covered. Replay showed, clearly got his glove over the top of it. And all you do in those situations, you just go, well, folks, got that wrong. Clearly this shows something different, and we move on. Which is kind of what you do. Commentary is a really, really fascinating thing to do in those kind of big moments, because you are kind of aware of the occasion, but you're also just trying to be as loose as you possibly can be. You don't want to be too tense, too tight, and you don't want to kind of be fiddling around with anything. And you don't want to kind of be kind of fussing and fiddling with too much. Joe and I had a bevy of notes. Joe does his notes in a very different way that I do to mine. Joe does a lot more kind of closer to the knuckle sometimes, and I will generally turn up with everything in hand, which is fun. Also as well because I just walked around and talked to far too many people at times. That was probably my which is my own thing to do. Dan, I've seen that in the chat. Thank you for your kind words. Spadafor to Bison. Everyone to Bison. Let's just start all the rumours now. Scott, you've actually mentioned the thing I was going to talk about there, which was really, really funny. Where a few people at times were quite amusing. Bias is an interesting thing because I'll let you in, Scott, and I'll let everybody else in a little bit of a surprise here. I am biased. I have my prejudices. There are things that I will look at and I will just go, that's not for me. I don't like that. Now, the difference is, knowing that I can admit those biases, I can still try my very, very best to be fair. Because that's what I ever do. I don't try to be neutral, because being neutral is pointless, especially in this kind of world where I've set myself up to be analytical of stuff like that. Because ultimately, I can analyse, and I say to you guys, here's what I think, make your own calls on it kind of thing. But I still make my own opinions. Like people, I'm here most weeks kind of talking about what I think of stuff. I've written a whole piece today about the new ownership in Basingstoke. That's got my opinion in it. I'm not unbiased. What I try to be is fair. And that's different, I think, because there are some things that I will never enjoy. And I think the thing that made me chuckle was, the second semi-final we saw, Joe and I both were made aware of after the fact, that we'd had MK fans accuse us of being biased towards Leeds, and Leeds fans accused us of being biased towards Milton Keynes, which, for me, I thought meant that we probably hit the right note somewhere along the line. It was quite funny. And then the other thing that we had during the first game, we got made aware that some folk had said that we were being biased against Swindon and towards Peterborough. Now, any long-term watchers of Banners on the Wall, any of my long-term readers, any long-term viewers of the What's Current stream will know that me being accused of being biased in favour of Peterborough is quite funny in and of itself. Joe, of course, is originally from Swindon and had his Wildcats jersey with him in the commentary box. The reason why we say a thing is how it is because we call a good thing good, we call a bad thing bad, and we talk out the bits that we don't quite understand. That's just how it works. Ultimately, people are not going to like what you say. That's the nature of doing any of these bits and pieces, right? And over time, I've gotten better at kind of just ignoring it. Not ignoring it per se, because actually there's some critical self-thought to be done. Ooh, somebody said X. Thank you, Kev. That's what I was going for as well. But yeah, there's something to be said for, if you see a lot of people saying something, maybe just pausing for a second, just evaluating, having a little bit of critical self-thought. It's no bad thing. It's no bad thing at all. And that's what you can do, really. It's just investigate and see what's going on. I'm just going to very quickly look at a WhatsApp as a message flashed across my my screen, as it were. But yeah, one thing I've just noticed here in the chat is people talking about as well is that on that video, there's some bits and pieces on that video on the Haringey scoreboard. Are we seeing a potential two-way bunch of announcements between, because the Bees have obviously re-announced their bits and pieces with the Cardiff Canucks. Are we about to see the same with Haringey? I personally don't know, so I can't potentially comment either way. Would I be surprised? No. There's a bunch of very, very talented youngsters. If nothing else, somebody above Division 2 level needs to sign Jaden Bulkar. He's very good at that level and should be playing higher. Lauren, how did that kind of 2A work last year? They ended up in Bristol. I just don't have any other reason other than bees moving to Haringey. I mean, of course, Lauren, that's what happened last year with Streatham, wasn't it? That a bunch of those guys who'd been with the bees stepped down into South One, and then the flip side the other way was that the bees got people like Adam Erskine, Preston Toms, Roman Cathcart into the bargain as well. So could guys with the bees be stepping down to Haringey? Eventually, those guys not going to want to step immediately from the national to Div 2 unless there were certain circumstances. Obviously, Hallam Wilson, who's at the bees, moved from a national division side to a South 2 side, but that was to stay in Basingstoke and kind of help with bits and pieces there. That was a very special circumstance. I venture, if that's, if we're walking down that line, it's more likely for youngsters to come up to train rather than necessarily the other way around. Then the Huskies want to move up to D1. They originally wanted to move for this year and decided against it. So we will see what happens there. Could a pathway between them rather than Streatham? Time will tell. And potentially that could work a lot better, maybe, for the bees to have, to have access to players in a slightly different place. Of course, Haringey is the other side of London from them, but obviously, there's ways and means to make that work. But yes, Kev, I laughed as well when people accused me of being biased towards Peterborough. It is what it is on that front. I did have a very brief conversation with Tom Norton about it. He laughed as well. But yeah, so Saturday, Peterborough beating Swindon in the first semi-final. What will probably be known as the Nathan Salem game for time in memoriam in Peterborough, because it was a one-man masterclass from the second line there from Nathan Salem. The Wildcats utterly misfire, not at the races for the first 15 minutes. Picked up, but again, they put themselves in such a deep hole that they just couldn't find a way back. Yes, they pulled it. They pulled the scores back, but they always felt like they were chasing the game. I felt both teams' top lines really struggled in this game. Aaron Nell and Tomasz Malzinski rather ineffective, and even to an extent, like we saw Jake Bricknell, and obviously we'll talk about that in a bit. But Jake Bricknell completely ineffectual during the semi-final. I think Cam Huff and I think the Huff Ferrara Lackinen line huffed and puffed a lot. Actually, it huffed and puffed a lot of the weekend, but really just didn't find much ground anywhere at all. But certainly that first semi-final was Nathan Salem just absolutely powering his way through, willing his team over the line by himself. It was a superb performance from him. For the Cats, they're left scratching their head again. I thought Rennie Marr had an okay game. He wasn't really at fault for any of the goals, but he just didn't get the support in front of him. Swindon again made the big occasion and just couldn't handle it when it comes down to it. Swindon was slavered as I predicted. Yeah, I think. And the thing was though, it was a slavering in kind of the most lackadaisical way, because they didn't need to go full power. That was the thing. Swindon pooed the bed so hard so fast that they didn't need to even turn up the full power slavering. And that was how that went. Second semi-final, of course, tore the roof off the place. Milton Keynes beating Leeds in overtime. Of course, MK were nearly there, and then 9 seconds from time at the end of the 9 seconds from time in the end of the third period, Kieran Brown on his way to World Championships with GB, an absolute cracker of a shot with 9.2 seconds left to play to save them and take them into overtime. But then in OT, that little bit of extra pressure, and as we got that magic 5-on-5, 10 minutes worth of overtime, but it took just over 5 minutes for it to work. Dylan Lawrence wins the face-off, charges the net. Sam Gospel goes for the poke check that had worked before and misses, and Dylan Lawrence walks it around and in, sending MK to the final. Now, I've heard no complaints from Leeds fans at all, and I think it's because it's true. MK were the better team in that second semi-final, ran the show, but the quality of Leeds just kept them within punching distance, and that's the mark of a really good team. And sure, people could talk about the Grand Slam being denied, and yeah, that's fun in its own little way, but ultimately MK were the better side. It was the mark of really good teams is they adapt to what they're doing, and MK found a way to adapt in the moment in that game. They came up with a game plan and smashed the living daylights out of Leeds. Poor may not... I think poor is harsh, because I don't think Leeds were poor. Swindon were poor, I think, on the whole. Because whilst, again, the top lines for most of the teams didn't really produce, the depth still turned up and did a job for Leeds when it counted. And then right at the last moment, Milton Keynes left the best player in the league, who was not on his best day, but still left the best player in the league with enough time to crank a shot in. That is what it is on that front. It should have been the final, and you should have won your group, Jamie. That's all I can say on that one. But yeah, there's something to be said about the fact that Leeds, even on their best day, still made still clawed Milton Keynes within punching distance the entire time. But ultimately, I think on the balance of the 65 and a bit minutes we got, Milton Keynes with the better side. Should have been in the final, did end up in the final. It could be what it is on that front. Lots of bits about the Bees. Hi, Joe. Love you, mate. Fantastic as you are the man as ever. Just checking other bits and pieces. Now the question is, and I venture he knows, because what I'm interested to see, how is Liam Kirk doing? Because Liam Kirk faced off about 2 and a bit hours ago. Turns out MK are massive everywhere they go. Well, they told us that quite vociferously. I think Liam Kirk and the Ice Bear in Berlin are going to win Game 3. They are currently 6-0 up. Kirky's just scored as well into the bargain, which is his second of the night. He scored the first, and he scored the sixth on a delayed penalty goal with 3 minutes to play. Deary me. Köln have just run out of steam in the DEL finals on that front. Yeah, everyone. Yes, as Joe says, everyone can relax about the Bees. What I fancy on this one, and I feel that they possibly missed this a little bit. Bees logo on the new jumbotron looks like they could be playing out of Haringey this season. Another rink to tick off. Possibly not. This is Game 4, isn't it? No, it's Game 3. It's Game 3. I got it wrong the other day, I thought. We'll double check, actually. I thought this was Game 3. Yeah, it is. It's Game 3. Well, it is a Game 4. I'm losing my marbles. Might be some news on Friday from the Palace. There probably is, Nikki, and you probably know it. Why can I not count? 6 and 7. No, it is Game 4. I'm sorry. That's going to be the title, isn't it? Everyone to one hockey. No, joke. I'm having an absolute mare today in terms of counting. It is Game 4. Apologies, everyone. Why am I losing my marbles so much? Salem was legit. Swindon seemed poor for a team in their standard. Yeah, they were. But yeah, so that was Saturday then. Big thanks to all of my Swindon supporting friends. Lovely to spend Saturday evening in the Premier Inn with a few pints and some souvlaki, because shout out Don Russell for ordering that for us. Sunday then, Slough, Billingham. And of course these two were meeting for the second time in a week, having met in the Division 1 National Playoff Final the weekend before at the Steel City Showdown. Billingham had taken the honours in overtime the week before. And they say, as they said earlier, the best teams adapt. And boy, did the Jets adapt. Billingham were up at 4 a.m. to get down to Coventry. But ultimately, Slough went to bed very late the week before, and it ends up being all turned on its head. A very tired-looking Billingham side got absolutely smashed by the Slough Jets in the end. A 6-1 final score as the Jets end Billingham's chance of a Grand Slam and take the Division 1 National Championship game in what turned out to be Nate Gregory's last appearance for the Jets. Of course, he got the Sunday the previous week and was unsuccessful. I had to watch Matt Smittle put on an absolute clinic on Sunday against a Billingham side that looked lacklustre, tired. And again, another top line that didn't really fire. Michael Elder, Chris Sykes, Ian Brown, all relatively anonymous, unfortunately, which, given that when I saw them in D's side, they were all still pretty hungover from the week before, they looked very impressive. And the Jets just had the better conditioning, the better game plan. They just did all of the hard yards. Another fantastic performance from Ollie Hemmings-Marr in this one. Matt Smittle took the man of the match beers for the for the Jets this one. Michael Elder for the Stars, which was a bit of a strange one. For me, I thought Ben Greenhalgh was fantastic. And of course, we now know it was the last game in Billingham colours for a very certain particular number 12. That, of course, then took us into the main event, the last game of the National Ice Hockey League 24-25 season across all the divisions, to the Peterborough Phantoms and the MK Lightning. And ultimately, Peterborough just had no answer. MK thought, well, it worked last night, let's try it again. And every question that Joe and I could come up with on commentary, would they be able to be as physical again as they had been the night before? Would they shrink in the moment like they had before? MK had all the answers on the day, and they put Peterborough firmly out of sight. It was a masterful performance from the MK Lightning in the end. They were superb. In terms of their winning, deserved winners, the best team from a National Division perspective across the course of the weekend. Congratulations to Tim Wallace, congratulations to Joe Wilson and the rest of the Lightning as a side. Masterful, absolutely masterful. They played Nathan Salem did it all by himself all over again. And for me, I know it doesn't happen very often, but if you think about like the Conn Smythe in the NHL, it's MVP of the weekend on a losing effort to me. Nathan Salem was the best player of the weekend, and yes, we can talk about Jordan Headley, and Headley was also superb this weekend. We can talk about Cowney, we can talk about Stewart, we can talk about Wallace. I thought Tim Wallace actually used himself really, really well. Talk about Patrick Forsberg. For me, just for the sheer force of will, I'm giving MVP of the weekend to Nathan Salem. I thought he was absolutely brilliant, where everybody else around him just didn't seem to be able to keep up with what he was trying to do. Ross Venus as well. Ross Venus had a really, really good final. But that's what the Lightning do. When Lightning get their feet underneath themselves, they're almost unstoppable. The problem that they have is that in individual moments they do it, but it's that consistency of being able to do it across the season that gets you the league title. That's why Leeds are league champions. But ultimately, a bit of catharsis for MK. They finally wait, and they have got their prize. The question now for the Milton Keynes Lightning is just kind of a bit like Slough this year in South 1. You got it, but can you keep it? And can you go and get more? Mr. Bauer, hearing chat about Beeslog appearing on a video poster this evening. Yes, you might need to talk to your friends in North London. Forsberg assist on the third goal was superb. It was. Just drew everybody and their mother out of position. Everybody was almost in the spawn gate. He pulled them so far to that side of the rink on that one. Cracking. In terms of what happens with highlights, hold your breath. There was Sheffield and Coventry to do back-to-back. Drop the puck are going to be working on it. They'll come in time. So don't panic about that one. Yeah, it is game 4 with... apologies. Yes, it is game 4. We're going to get at least a game 5 because Köln won game 2. 7-0 final score in game 4. Who scored the 7th goal? Eric Hurdler. Less worry on that one. But yeah, so Liam Kirk is 60 minutes. Liam Kirk is 60 minutes away from winning the DEL Championship. Nothing sinister. I didn't think there was, Graham. I thought you just had another two-way agreement, to be perfectly honest. Needed 1,000 back at the rink to work in the team at 9 PM on a Sunday night. Yeah. What brave person was sent to order all of those hats, by the way? Because, of course, you get hats for winning. And MK had their own ones, which was, that's brave. But either way, yeah, so that got us to the end of the weekend. And the door closed on the National Ice Hockey League for 2024-25. And then what does it mean? From a National Division perspective, 2 for Leeds, 1 for MK, which ultimately, they were the 2 teams that we expected to kind of at least win most of the trophies or get close to them. In Division 1 North, Billingham all the way. In the South, mostly Slough, which also popped up and won the cup. In the North, in Division 2, Telford overall, and in the South, Peterborough picked up most of the trophies, but in true Peterborough fashion couldn't win the league. That one stays at the Spectrum with our friends, the Guildford Phoenix. The 2024-25 National Ice Hockey League season is done. Ain't it great the fact the WNIHL is still going? So that's the thing I would say. There is a bunch of stuff obviously coming up in the next few days as well. Go watch women's hockey. This Saturday in Milton Keynes, James Griffin's testimonial. So if you're in the area, do go and support that. Christian Chico Cole of the Solent Devils, he has his testimonial and jersey retirement. He'll be the first player in Solent Devils history to have his jersey retired this Saturday at Planet Ice Gosport. Of course, I will find a way there because Gosport is 45 minutes from my house, and also Chico is superb. He was one of the best netminders at that sort of Division 1 level for a really, really long time. Lovely chap. Want to go on a legend of sort of local hockey, local to where I live. And Chico is a legend. Lovely chap, and hopefully we're going to have a really, really good night on that front. We then, of course, move in to this week because the silly season has officially begun and changes have been chopped and changed and made. We obviously talked last week about Adam Leishram and the change there in Romford with Jason Buckman being the new coach. No new coaches on the horizon, but already a few bits of movement. Oh, para hockey. Yes, Kev plays para hockey. That's starting next month. I can't remember all the rinks. Kev, put them in the chat, but you can go watch that too. There's plenty of stuff that's going to be happening. The question is, which team is going to dare to do an out-of-season shirt, the April shower shirt, the summer shirt? Hopefully none of them. That's nonsense. But yeah, in terms of news bits and pieces, Solway have moved early, and Jordan Amar will be back for another season as a Shark. No massive surprise. Scottish lad wants to play in Scotland. No surprise there at all. Irrespective of the fact that Solway again finishing outside of the playoffs. Quality netminder. Now, I love me some big Cal Hepburn as much as the next man. Cal's great. Jordan it showed that he was able to kind of lead the line and steal some games for Solway this year. No huge surprise about that one at all. There was a little bit of surprise, sort of, because it was talked about massively at the weekend in Coventry, and that's Jake Bricknell will not be back for the Swindon Wildcats in 25-26. The league's top goal scorer will leave the red part of the southwest. There is no confirmed destination as to where he will be for 25-26, irrespective of the fact that if you asked anybody at the weekend, everybody seemed to know the answer. Make your own jokes on that one. But the Wildcats made a move quickly to kind of dispel any worries in terms of bad PR with some really good PR, and that is that GB International, a man of 1,000 clubs and some ridiculous stories from Kazakhstan, if you've ever listened to 4,000 and counting. Ben O'Connor is a Swindon Wildcat for 25-26. Now based out of Guildford, it should be said, which obviously helped facilitate this move ever so slightly. But boy, if there was an elite league player to fit the system of any team in the NIHL, Ben O'Connor playing for Aaron Nell is as close a fit as a jigsaw puzzle piece. Like Ace Ventura. This is like a glove. There is no better defenseman to kind of join out of the elite league into the national division to fit a team's style. And obviously O'Connor is not as young as he used to be anymore. Some people say that potentially he might have lost a bit of a step, or ultimately living in Dundee when your missus is from Surrey, it's probably just an easier factor for him if he doesn't factor into Guildford's plans. This is what it is on that front. But this is an opportunity for O'Connor to kind of have a set base, do some other bits and pieces now around hockey, whilst being able to play at a relatively decent level. What does this mean for the Cats? Well, ultimately there'll be some immediate questions about what happens with Ryan Wells. Now there is obviously chatter going on if you listen to folk about that as well, but ultimately we don't know on that front as to what's happening with Ryan Wells. But it does make you question, because Ben O'Connor is not going to be playing for meal vouchers from the Harvey and pizzas in the period breaks at the Link Centre. He's going to cost a bit of money to be getting him to play in the national division. And so what that means is Cats fans might have to be looking down the barrel of the fact that, given that we are going to be now having 4 imports next year, that maybe O'Connor is actually a Wells replacement, that they bring in a slightly different kind of defenseman, maybe a more stay-at-home defenseman like a Jordan Spadafor. I don't think Swindon would sign Jordan Spadafor, but more of a defensive style defenseman, and then maybe replacing some of the goals of Bricknell in the aggregate with your other two import forwards, given who you get. Because of course that's the other big bit of news. The national division becomes a 4 import league, and we are back to the level of the classic EPL in terms of imports. Now, a lot of people will talk about this being a quality thing. This is about a roster filling out thing. The player pool in the south is quite small. The player pool in some parts of the north is deeper than it is in other parts as well, ultimately, but some places are also quite small. What this is about allowing teams to fill out their rosters as much as it is about quality, because ultimately people will turn around and say about the imports are the exciting bit. Not really. Hockey is hockey. It doesn't matter your nationality, and being as we're in Britain, the majority of your players really should be, if you can make it work out, be British, because it should be cheaper to run on your own. It should be cheaper to run out of your own nationalities than bringing players in. That isn't necessarily the case, however, and the ability to have more imports allows teams to have deeper rosters as a result. How teams choose to use them is another thing, because we've seen in the past a team like Basingstoke use an import like Joe Rand, who was not a top line, 70-point goals, 70-point, 50 goal scoring import. He filled the gap that they had, and ultimately what you should be using imports for is use imports to fill the holes in your roster that you don't have. Swindon don't need a top six centre, because firstly, we all both know Malazinski will be back, and you've also got Glenn Billing. So you don't need a top six centre. Your imports fill the holes at a quality that you have with a quality player that comes from a league of a higher standard. At least that's the premise, right? And ultimately, like I said with Swindon, now you have the extra person that you can sign. You don't need a guy to score 55 goals. You can have two guys who score 40 goals, because 40 plus 40 is 80. You replace what Bricknell did in the aggregate. But ultimately then, what does Swindon do in defence? I don't think any team is going to go 4 import forwards, mostly because defence is an issue across the entire country. We've spent the last better part of a decade trying to make too many Ben O'Connors and Mark Richardsons and not enough Mark Thomases. We need defensive defensemen. Of course, we don't. So those were the big bits of news from places today. But obviously, as we talked about earlier, the Bees have done their bits and pieces in terms of re-upping their two-way agreement with the Cardiff Canucks. The Canucks, of course, have had some changes as well. Gareth Thomas, one of their original founders, has moved on from the organisation. Be really interesting to see how the Bees use that. There's obviously the two big prospects people talked about, Harry Thomas and Josh Poole, both of whom left the Bees to go play for Bristol, and we are left with there are more youngsters in Cardiff in the pipeline who now the Bees will get first crack at. We wait to see whether they have anybody else potentially going on that front as well. Just looking at the chat, would you like to see Ash back in Basingstoke or something fresh? I want to see anything. We Are Ghost. Firstly, I don't know how excited you are or not for the new album. What I've heard of the new Ghost album, I'm not massively enamoured with. I think I prefer Imperia to what I've heard so far of the new record. I'm not fussed, really. I think Ash deserves the ability to... In some ways, I think Ashley Tate should have the chance to coach in a Basingstoke that's on a much more stable footing. But that's not my decision to make. I think it works either way. Para Hockey. 2 teams in Sheffield, Peterborough, Cardiff, and a team in Manchester and or Widnes. I can't really tell what you've written there, Kev. I see Tyler Perry coming to Basingstoke. Reading his Insta post seems like it could be on the move entirely, but also as well we know that maybe it's just a case of that his situation is not confirmed yet and he just doesn't know what's going on. Don't say that, James. Raiders will release one. It'll probably be poo coloured. If they get any ideas. Raiders did have a lot of special shirts this year. Although, as somebody who's not a big fan of special shirts, the breast cancer pink Raider shirt I thought was really good. What's the import limit for Sweden second tier or Germany's? I don't know off the top of my head. But, you'd have to forgive me, Dave. I'd have to go look that up. The worry is that the top National League teams will get super teams and the bottom struggle. I fear for the Bees. I mean, the player pool in the south has been getting progressively smaller. Guys who didn't want to travel up to the upper reaches of the north or go to Dumfries on a Sunday night found the ability to make a decent wage in South 1, and they have to travel as far north as Milton Keynes and as far west as Cardiff. So it's obviously a bit of a tough one on that. Ultimately, I think there's something to be said for whether wages and the like either go up or go down as a result, because the opportunities are going to be there for guys. There's going to be opportunities for guys to get a look at, and ultimately, if people can say what they want in such bits and pieces, but guys will want to make money out of being a semi-professional to be able to live. And the clubs need to figure out the best way to kind of spend that money, and that can be brought in a bunch of different ways, sponsorship being one of them. And of course, the other news that we've had today is that 2 clubs are moving on, or at least have been moved on, from their title sponsors. Hull, of course, have been sponsored by Reckitt, who are a sort of global sort of pharmaceutical household brand. So the days of the party bags at the end of Hull Seahawks games are done, as Hull will be looking for a new title sponsor, as will Peterborough actually as well. Weldeck and Peterborough's agreement has come to a conclusion. There'll be new title sponsors for at least 2 clubs. You assume potentially probably 3. Basingstoke will eventually get a title sponsor from somewhere over the next season. In terms of that, Ben, thank you, of course. Ben from Drop the Puck is in the chat. Fantastic support from him and from Gary and the whole crew this past weekend, allowing Joe and I to do what we do. Maybe not based out, I could see him on the move. Issue is I wouldn't like to see Ben Clark-Leach use the backup yet. Could argue it'll hinder his development. He's a once in a generation. Ben Clark-Leach and Alfie Jeffries, of course, starring for Great Britain under 18s, who picked up a silver medal, losing out to Italy on the last day in Asiago in Italy. On that one, massive congratulations to him. Shout out to our boy Max Van Mullen, of course unable to do graphics because he was trying to play for GB, the odd man out a little bit, but he did get on the bench, did get his first international appearance, backing up Ben Clark-Leach in one of those games. Ben Clark-Leach was in the firing line a little bit during his season with Swindon, but he looks really, really good. The issue, of course, is that it's finding the most appropriate place for him to play, all things considered. It is another season of South One the best thing for him, or is potentially going and backing up on a national division side where he might get some time with somebody else? I don't know, because of course with 4 imports, we see the potential for more backup, for more import netminders as well, which will be really, really interesting. And Maxi, that is a hell of a trio, very, very much. And of course with Max is young enough where he will be able to have another crack next year. So no big issues for Max not getting a ton of ice time this time around, because he's got another year where he will be eligible for under 18s. What happens with him? Alfie Jeffries, of course, has come back from America, has been helping out the Coventry Blaze because Will Bray was down injured. I think Alfie ended up in goal for a very, very small portion, and his GAA in the Elite League is technically 60, or something ridiculous like that. But you've got this sort of glut of good younger players coming through, and where people were quite frustrated with the performance of the GB under 20s, the GB under 18s, performed much better in their missing out on promotion obviously by losing to Italy, but looked very solid at Division 2A level. Deeply sad to hear the players will be getting their weekly present of kitchen cleaner and sponges. I think it's more some of the other bits and pieces released if you're Emil Svek. What was more interesting on that front. But yes, so I'm just double checking because there's obviously a few bits. New Peterborough title sponsor on Friday. I had missed that. I've missed that one, Kev. So thank you very much for that one. We will very quickly just try and pull up the Phantoms socials bits and pieces. Wrong Alfie Blakely, not Jeffries. There we go. Thank you. Had a message from somebody. Alfie Blakely was doing it for GB under 18s. Nice someone's paying attention. Given the fact I was sent that to my mobile, get in the chat, you coward. If they're announcing it on Friday, I've missed that one. That's the other thing as well. Speaking of Peterborough, because I know Emily Woods, who's their head of marketing, and Corey McEwen, of course, welcomed their daughter, and that's why we didn't see much of Corey McEwen on Saturday night at the Sky Dome. So congratulations to them on the birth of their daughter. Awesome news. Being a dad is really great, and I really hope you enjoy that. I really hope you enjoy your time with your little one. I'm trying to desperately think. There's been so much news. It's almost hard to remember what there is. Can't forget the lube. You cannot forget the lube Frankie. Life goes quicker with it. Just double checking because there's a bunch of bits and pieces. Like I say, this is the worry, of course, of everything firing around. There isn't any other immediate news. So what we should probably talk about is, of course, that Sunday sees the start of the WNIHL Division 1A World Championships in Romania. GB, with a grand total of 2 days worth of a training camp before they head out, are going back into battle. So the way it stands at the moment is GB will have their first bit of action. Summer re-signing for the Dogs. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second because I've just remembered it as you said it, Dave. GB start this coming Sunday, 3 p.m. Our time. They will take on Ukraine. Monday the 28th at 6:30 p.m. GB time. They take on the hosts Romania. Wednesday the 30th at 11:30 a.m. British time. They take on Japan. Thursday the 1st of May at 11:30 they take on Italy, and then they round out on Saturday the 3rd of May at 6. Is that 6? I can't read that. That's too small. 6:30 p.m. on Saturday the 3rd of May. GB versus Poland to round out their World Championships. I am not feeling massively confident as I did in terms of promotion. I think getting a medal would be solid. I think GB as a nation, we need to just be prepared to kind of yo-yo a little bit up and down between the world group and 1A for a little while. Staying in the group, I think, is the big thing. Don't get so shell-shocked you go back down twice. As Dave has stuck in the chat and mentioned to us, Walker Summer has re-signed for the Sheffield Steel Dogs, which, I mean, Sam Trombley is reportedly back, so they've told us in their thing. I'd be hugely surprised if they don't find a way to change that into him just being a Steeler full-time next year, but we will wait and see on that front. But Walker Summer is re-upped for another season in the at Sheffield. The summer comes back in the autumn for Ben Morgan and the Sheffield Steel Dogs. Too many Alfies though. That was my mistake on that one there. But yeah, of course, now the great thing is we are just very much into silly season. Tons of stuff going on. Always interesting to kind of figure out what happens at this stage. And ultimately, we will see what happens. So, by the looks of it, Bees are potentially playing a friendly. That's why the person who sent me that message, apparently, they're being watched on the big TV. I forget this is a really weird thing. I forget that people have YouTube on their television because I watch so much YouTube on my phone because my son will hog the television. I forget that people actually watch this on the television, which I find really weird because who wants me in Ultra 3D HD, as it were. Either way, plenty of fun. But yeah, plenty of bits and pieces going on. Obviously, a lot of rumours going around. We won't worry about too much about that. We'll talk about, we can. There's obviously a lot of chatter that goes around. There's a lot of chatter that kind of comes. But we'll see what happens. When stuff is confirmed, we'll talk about it. The door is open, though, as we've kind of gone through most of the bits from an NIHL perspective. So anything anybody else wants to chuck in, NHL playoffs, women's hockey, any other bits of hockey that you're watching elsewhere. I woke up this morning and watched a bit of the second and third overtime in the AHL playoffs between Coachella Valley and Calgary. That was bizarre to kind of wake up and at 7 o'clock in the morning be watching hockey. Thoughts on the Raiders head coach appointment? I like it. I like it purely from the fact that Romford are a team that is not flush with cash, with an ownership group that is learning how to run the team and has taken a risk on a guy that helped the Buccaneers punch above their weight. And ultimately, Buckman's not going to play. Buckman's going to be on the bench, and I think that's a good thing to see. Coach is coach. Coach is coaching and players playing. And ultimately, I think it's a really good thing to have a bench coach who will be able to implement his style a little bit. Might be a bit more Romford-esque than... and I think people will like that. What is interesting, the issue for Buckman is going to be recruitment, because ultimately the thing to help Romford push on is getting some of those guys from outside the Romford bubble to kind of come and join the team. Put the kid in the cupboard. Lauren, I don't know what that means, but it makes me laugh. But yeah, lots kind of going on. and lots to kind of be to be seen in Romford. Yeah, that's what we say though. Actually, is Pete Russell, the GB head coach, of course, leaving Cardiff, signed a new 3-year deal with the Cardiff Devils back in November, but has opted out after the end of the season. He's returning to Germany and DEL2 to join the Rote Teufel Bad Nauheim for next season. Apparently, their top candidate for the job, if you believe the press release released by Bad Nauheim earlier. At some point yesterday. Stylistically, I think it's a better fit. Pete has Danny Stewart has won a domestic trophy before Pete Russell, and for whatever reason, Pete's coaching style just seems to work better abroad. In the same way, Paul Thompson's coaching style seems to work better abroad. And obviously, yeah, it's problematic from a family perspective. Bad Nauheim's not the worst place in the world to live in. It's not the most interesting part of the world, but he gets to coach a really well-established, really highly thought-of club in German hockey. Should be really interesting. Also, coincidentally, a place where Mark Richardson played, because Mark Richardson is a former Red Devil into the bargain. Tyler Perry's just moved house right near the link, so I don't think he's going anywhere else. You hope not. But then Ollie Stone used to live near the Link Centre as well. And what does that tell you there? You said your son hogs the TV, put him in the club. Ah, I do, I see. Thank you, Lauren. That would have made much more sense. Jamie, of course, you did ask a question there and I've just missed it. Conferences in the National League next season. I think there is a high percentage chance that we do see conferences in the National next year. Player pool being smaller, travel being greater. I think there is a real chance of us getting a 6-6 split. I can see that Ben from Zero Pucks Given has put in there about Slough, Streatham and Chelmsford joining up. Streatham are not going to step up into a 4-import league. They cannot afford to do so. Slough have wanted to join the National Division before and from my understanding, didn't get the votes to get in. Chelmsford won't even stream, and you have to stream to be in the National Division, and that sort of outlay of money I do not think will appeal to the current ownership in Chelmsford. We'll get a 6-6 split. The issue, of course, being where is the split? In some ways, if Fife actually dropped out of the Elite League and came into the National and having 13 teams, it would be somewhat easier to have a 7-6 split north and south, because then you potentially don't have to split up Milton Keynes and Peterborough. But ultimately, I do think we'll have a 6-6 split. How that works, we do not know at the moment. We'll just need to kind of wait and see. What we will do, though, as Andrew has put in the bits and pieces from the WNIHL, of course, remember, plenty of games to go to, because we'll go through the fixtures as well. But obviously, over the weekend, whilst the men's season was concluding, the women's season keeps rumbling on. So we'll look back at the last weekend, starting with the WNIHL Elite League. Streatham squeaking by the Kingston Diamonds, the Storm win by 4-3 on the high road, and a loss at home for the Solihull Vixens, losing 4-1 to the Whitley Bay Beacons as the run into the title goes. Answered, of course, by the Queen Bee smashing the Guildford Lightning 10-1 at the Spectrum on Saturday. On Sunday, well, bad to worse for the Lightning. They lose away in Hull against the Kingston Diamonds by 3-2. As Andrew's noted here, the Vixens' first loss of the season's first, still with 31 points. The Queen Bees on 27, 3 games to play for both. Whitley Bay are in third, Streatham fourth, Kingston fifth. The Guildford Lightning bottom of the table currently, though they are level on points with the Diamonds. Results from elsewhere in the WNIHL. 1 South on Saturday, a 9-2 win for the Cardiff Comets in Slough against the Firebees. And on Sunday, the Comets then had it turned on themselves. Shut out at home 4-0 by the Bristol Huskies. In 2 North on Saturday, a 5-all tie between the Leeds Racers and the Whitley Bay Beacons. The Kingston Diamonds get Division 2 side taking an absolute kicking. They lose by 13-1 against the Telford Arican Raiders. South 2A on Saturday, Solent Amazons travelled up to Peterborough, a productive one for the Amazons. They win by 9-1 over the Phantoms women. Slough Sirens defeating the Oxford Midnight Stars by 6-2, and Streatham Storm's second team defeat the Cambridge Kodiaks by 2-0. Fixtures then for this upcoming weekend. A 1:10 face-off in Slough for the Queen Bees and the Kingston Diamonds. Guildford Lightning take on the Whitley Bay Beacons at 4:55. And Solihull try to get back to winning ways at 6:25 at Hobbsmoat Road. They take on the Streatham Storm. Just the one game on Sunday. That can't be right, Andrew. An 8:30 AM face-off. That can't be right. Guildford versus Whitley Bay at 8:30 AM. Yes, they're playing in Guildford the day before, but 2 games in the space of about 16 hours, 17 hours is mental. That's silly. Solway in Division 1 North this coming weekend. Solway take on the Caledonia Steel Queens in the Scottish Derby. That's at 3 p.m. Sunday in Division 1 South, Swindon Top Cats and the Firebees at 1 p.m. Milton Keynes and Chelmsford is a 6:30 p.m. face-off at the Thunderdome. 2A South on Sunday, Peterborough Phantoms versus Cambridge Kodiaks. It's a chance for the Kodiaks to win the league title. Both teams have Kodiaks and the Streatham Storm have already qualified for the playoffs. Just looking at the bits there. Yes, that's right. 8:30 a.m. Who's going to that one? Chris Callahan there, Blue Line Photography. Goodbye to the Spongate from an Andrean kit. Yep, the Spongate will close in May, the last playoff weekend at the Spongate, which is a shame for those who frequent it. Not a pub I personally went to a massive amount. I was always a much bigger drinker at the old Windmill. And didn't really have the opportunity all the time to really go there. Found it was better on the Saturday to just kind of decompress with my friends in the Premier Inn. It was just easier on that front. Interesting little chat there, of course, about teams in the WNIHL, which is awesome. We like to see. I checked with the Guildford Lightning player, and he's right. We think the Beacons are staying over. The Caledonians have had a game at 9 a.m. This is silly. Dave, of course, in the chat, who big watcher of the Kodiaks. First loss for the Kodiaks. Shame, still a great record. Mentioned to you before. I'd highly recommend you catch the Southern Amazons if you get the chance. I'll be in Peterborough this Sunday. I keep trying to. It's just a case of everything sort of... the wife has now got me back now that the NIHL season has finished. I have a lot booked in at the moment, Dave, as it should be said. Oh, tickle at the back of my throat. NHL, though, of course, the playoffs have begun. Plenty of fun results. As a Caps fan, really pleased that the Caps have started off well. Alexander Ovechkin was his first ever playoff overtime winner, which is hilarious. It should be said there. Yeah, that was a bit of a strange one to see that finally happen. Not great that the Cats were 2-0 up and then chucked it, but also very, but also helpful to, to get the win if you're a Cats fan. And sad PK Subban, which is also quite funny. We'll just have a quick check as well and see if we have any more news. Just having a look as well. Pressing many buttons. But yeah, just having a look at the chat they're having here. A lot of chat. Peterborough will be the northern team for fairness reasons. There'll be a massive advantage for Swindon if Leeds, MK and Hull are all in the same conference. I mean, potentially, yeah. I think it depends how they will end up doing the split, Jamie, on that front, all things considered. Andrew says, it'd be nice to have more teams in the elite, maybe a question of money. A lot of players who also play for more than one team. Yeah, I think that's one thing we've seen. There's a lot of sort of dual and triple registered, certainly youngsters playing for teams in the Elite League and Div 1. A few games to Guildford and Slough in the next few weeks. If you want to go to a game, let me know if you're free one day and we'll see what's on. I mean, I think like I say, Andrew, I think the wife is quite pleased to have me back for a little bit. We'll kind of see what happens. But like I say, I'm in Gosport tomorrow. I'm in Gosport on Saturday for Chico Cole's testimonial. Should be really interesting. Chico, of course, played his juniors, played junior at Guildford, played for the Isle of Wight Raiders. Spent a lot of time with the Solent Devils, and like I say, the first ever jersey retirement for the Solent Devils, which is crazy to think that the Isle of Wight never officially retired a jersey. They planned to, but never got around to it, and ultimately the rink at Ryde shut before they were able to. My understanding was they planned to retire number 3 for Steve Gannaway, but never got the opportunity to do so. So Solent actually getting that one over the line, the first jersey retirement for the Devils in the form of number 1 going up on the wall in Gosport for Chico Cole. But yes, questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything anybody else wants to stick in the chat, please do so. While you're all doing that, what I will very quickly check, let's just click on that and make sure that's still working there, that's good. Whilst you're putting what you want to talk about in your chat, so questions, what I'll say as well, any questions you want to ask me, let's do it now. Let's kind of do a bit of an ask me anything off to see the season kind of thing, and I will let you know anything. So ask me any questions you want, and we'll just finish off the last sort of 5-10 minutes like that. Let me just quickly do some housekeeping though before we finish, whilst you guys are writing questions into the chat and stuff. How it works from here. The NIHL season has finished. So we will go back to what we traditionally do here at the What's Current stream, which is we will stream once a month in the off season. Now, if something massive happens, then we will come back sooner. Believe you me, we've always been a place that kind of tries to, keep up with the news as it is. But ultimately as well, we all need a break. And there's less to talk about. It's hard to do a weekly show about British ice hockey when the entire scene kind of falls by the wayside, and especially one that focuses on the national, in the NIHL, when there is nothing to do on that front. So we will go back. What we will do is we will stream at the end of the month. So the last Wednesday of the month is going to be the plan. So ultimately, after today, the next What's Current stream will be the last Wednesday in May, which will be Wednesday the 28th. Still at 8 p.m. And we'll do those bits and pieces. And then when the new season comes around, we will kind of kick on and do those bits and pieces and do it that way. But ultimately, pretty crazy season. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, because ultimately the way we end every season on Banners on the Wall is with a piece called Curtain Down. That's where I kind of wrap up everything, compress my thoughts, and close the door on the season. So we will close the door on 24-25 over the coming days. I'm going to get Chico's game out of the way, so it might come next week, but we'll see how we do on that one. People sticking some questions in the chat then to have a look at. Is there a chance the Buffalo returns next season? People talking about the Buffalo as... there's another question there about the Buffalo, so we'll take those two together. Chance the Buffalo return next season? Entirely yes. The Buffalo are part of the junior club, so what happens there, discussion to be had. Who comes back, I don't know. And also, the likelihood is they would go back into South 2 rather than going into South 1. We will see what happens on that front. Could you see the Buffalo join Division 1 similar to the Wildcats and Knights 2 now they're owned by Steve? No, because the Wildcats own the Wildcats second roster. The Knights own the Knights 2 are part of the Knights. The Buffalo are not part of the Bison. The Buffalo are part of the junior club. It would take some sort of some bits and pieces to happen in terms of that to come under the banner of what's happening with Steve Nell and Rob Furman and the Bison. So will be done very, very differently as a result. If you could pick only 3 players from the last Basingstoke team, who would they be? I'd get Gail Labuele back to run around and smash everybody sideways. I'd bring Alex Metten back out of retirement because I still think he would do a job. And I bring back George Norcliffe because George Norcliffe is a heart and soul player, and I think he'd be fantastic. Liam Morris to 5. Liam Morris is based down here and is based in Basingstoke. I'd be hugely surprised to see him join 5. He would love it, and I'm not saying never, but it would be a surprise if he did that. Who would you want back at the Bison? Pick a couple of former Bison, someone from another team, and an import. So in terms of people coming back, I'd pick, in terms of who's still playing, because of course, Gale is playing in senior AAA in Quebec, and Metz has retired, and that's actually a question for the Bison, of course, because we retired 28 for Alex Metten, so we have a jersey retirement to do next year. George Norcliffe I'd get back. I'd bring back Liam Morris because Mo is another sort of heart and soul player, and I'd bring back Elliot Dewey. One of the things I don't think people realise is just how popular Elliot Dewey is in the dressing rooms that he's in. Another guy who can kind of be a glue guy and hold things together. Also, because he's a defensive defenseman, and that's a really hard trick to kind of come by at the moment. Someone from another team, Finn Howells, because Glenn, I'd like someone who can kind of do a similar job to Glenn Belling, but be a little bit younger, and an import from another team. I'd quite like Johnny Corneal. I think Johnny Corneal, again, it's just about getting those guys from that in that sort of way, that sort of mould that I like. to kind of do. Playoff rebroadcast and highlights will be up on the Bison TV YouTube in the next few weeks. Also, watch on mute for the best effect. No, sorry, Joe. They have to listen to us to get the atmosphere of nothing else. Be plenty to talk about on Wednesday, the 28th of May. WNIHL finals the weekend before. See, Alex. See, Andrew. It's like we planned it. Milton stepped back down. There. I mean, he's not had the greatest of years in Manchester, but I would really hope that he could try and stick it out for a little bit more. I love Lindgren from Slough. I loved him when he was at the Bees. Yeah, I mean, Juha's great. I mean, Juha, of course, had been in Finland on national service and had finally come back and playing for Slough, getting to win some stuff alongside his brother is really, really good. So that would be really, really awesome to see on that front. Talbot to Bison. Sam Talbot, I don't think needs to step down. I think he was the only Guildford Flames player to play in every single game this year, League and Challenge Cup. The amount of injuries and suspensions they had at times. Talbot was the Iron Man, played with ice in every single game. Ultimately, I think he can hang, and he's proving himself to be a really useful penalty killer and face-off taker in the Elite League. I don't think we'll see him come back down, nor should he. Of course, we know Sean Norris got injured during the playoffs. Hopefully he is all right and his knee gets sorted out. I like him back. He's originally from sort of Slough way. That'd be really nice if we could get him back in the Basingstoke jersey. But no, I think Talbot back to the Flames, I think would probably be the smart money on that front when it comes down to it. Water. But yeah, a couple more minutes and then we'll knock it on the head. And like I say, we'll be back and then we'll come back in a week. How's Edgar settled in Telford? He's based in Coventry, is my understanding, or at least around that neck of the woods. So I know his other half is originally from Basingstoke, but I believe they're all based in Coventry now, because that's where his original base is. So again, I'd be surprised if he came back down this way. However, the score of the last Basingstoke Bison goal coming back into a Bison jersey would definitely be something I would not be against. I think with Edgar though, he'd be a depth piece, third or fourth line. I don't think he's in a position to be a second line guy at times like he was in the last Bison roster. 27 minutes past. So I'll tell you what. Last call here, and then I'll give you the spiel on the way out the door. And we'll do it that way, alright? So last call. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything you want to chuck in the chat. New puck, thanks to Andrew Day, who brought me one back from Women's World at Dumfries. Massive thank you to Andrew for that, which is pretty awesome. That goes in the collection there. The issue I have now is that the hockey shop is running out of space for pucks, so I don't know what I do at this point if I get any more, because I've got books from the wife and everything everywhere else. Have to figure that one out. But yeah, so yeah, like I say, last call. So you got like a few more seconds and stuff to put bits and pieces into the chat, and then I will, and then we will get on our way. Just double checking. Thank you very much, Dave. That's very, very kind of you to say. We'll talk about that in a minute. Oh, new PWHL franchise as it expands to Vancouver for... Is that going to happen this... When is this happening for, is the plan? Potential of a Seattle franchise as well, which could be interesting. And of course, it's just give the PWHL a Pacific time zone. Predictions for 25-26 without seeing signs. Lauren, I barely make predictions in August, and it should be said, because you don't make predictions without seeing without having data. That's just how that works. So yeah, I think the predictions, we get to do it all over again, and that's the important bit. We'll end it there for now. 24-25 has been a very, very surreal year for me, if we're 100% honest. The the ability to commentate at Elite League level, as much as I have done this year, was a surprise. And not something I was anticipating or expecting, but I like to think I tried my best and I've done an okay job. And any Flames fans watching, I will see you along the way, hopefully, when it comes to it. I said earlier that the Bison not being around kind of cut the cord and kind of gave me the opportunity to go out into the big wide world and do some different things. I got to commentate at Romford with no notes when I got asked to join things. When I got asked to do when I got asked to do that at a moment's notice. I went to D-side and went to a place that was just somewhere that was kind of talked about. I got to go back to Oxford and watch, well, he didn't play, but I got to watch our little graphics gremlin do his bits and pieces, and he got on the ice in a Great Britain jersey this year. And Max, I mean, I'll say this, mate, massively proud of you. Alarmingly privileged to kind of be in the sphere of your bits and pieces. It should be said. Ghost, yes, it is simple to relocate if you're a barber. He does also have a wife and a kid. So a massive thanks to Max and for all those bits and pieces. But this is the kind of weird, cool stuff I've been able to do the last couple of years. And I genuinely, like a lot of people, wondered, would the Bison ever be back? And it seems now that they are. And we do not know what that future holds, because ultimately it's still theory. Until skates touch ice, until that rink is ready, we do not know. And I don't know what I'm doing either. And I have to kind of make peace with that at the moment. And I think I can, because I think there's options out there for me to do. I could go home 100%. I could keep doing what I'm doing, or something else. I don't know. What I do know is that an answer will eventually appear. And I'll make my decision. And I will stick by my decision, and I will run with it, because that's how things happen. Ultimately, the big thing was about Basingstoke never dies, about getting our club back. And the Bison coming back is part of that, not all of it, because hockey in Basingstoke is bigger than one team. It's getting everybody back. And hopefully we are on the road to that happening, and the Bison is kind of the planting of the flag to say that it's all going to happen again soon. And that's really cool and really important to note too. But it's the Buffalo. It's the juniors. It's the women coming back from Slough if they so choose to. But yeah, it's been a pretty cool year. Gosport, Oxford, Slough, Romford, Bristol, D-side. I didn't get abroad this season, but that doesn't matter. Hockey is hockey. Whatever the level, wherever you find it. And ultimately, it's just a lot of fun. And I've massively enjoyed it. This, on Wednesday nights, has also been a lot of fun. It's been really, really good. It's been hard at times. The week I accidentally poisoned myself and couldn't do the show. Trying to do new bits of tech, or doing it on Friday nights, or getting in other people. I run this all off of a laptop, and I stand in the room in our house that we jokingly call the library. And we've had a lot of people join in tonight, much more than we usually do, and I'm massively grateful for that. Thank you. We'll be back next year, I promise, and we'll talk about the NIHL, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And like I said, if nothing else, we'll be back in a month, and we'll talk about the NIHL, and it'll be a ton of fun, and we'll have GB to talk about, and we'll have many more things to kind of do. But for those of you who've joined us, whether tonight or throughout the season, thank you. I'm an articulate loudmouth. I think that's the, I see what it's called. Yeah, tons of books. And a Dragon Sword. Don't forget the Dragon Sword. But yeah, it's weird that people put so much credence on what I say sometimes, but I think I always remind myself it's because I work hard at this. Like, this is a hobby, but it's a hobby I take quite seriously. I don't take myself seriously, so probably not as much as I should do. But I take the work I do seriously, and I put a lot of work into it, and that's why this works, and this is why I think people want to come in and listen to what's said and check bits and pieces out. And yeah, this isn't a high value production, I know that. And there's things I could do to make this better, and I will figure out a way to do those within the resources that I have. But thank you. Thank you for joining the ride. Thank you for coming on the road for the last couple of years. Thank you for putting up with me when I talk about the NIHL and then only wrote about Guildford for like 7 weeks in a row, because that's what I managed to get the opportunity to do. Thank you for your support and your trust and your encouragement. And we will see. We will see what comes next. I say it a lot, ever forwards, because ultimately nostalgia is great and you can look back, but there is one direction we travel, and it's forwards, and it's much better if we do it together. Enjoy the summer. And I say that, we're going to see each other in a month. It'll be alright. We'll call it. Banners on the wall. .wordpress.com. Your number one source for all things related to... I'm going to say this. Your number one source for all things related to British hockey. There we go. I will blow my own tyres for once and say that, you know, as I am the most... I believe I am the most prolific writer about British ice hockey. Bar none. I wrote 2,000 and a bit words off of the back of a 5.5 paragraph press release. I do what I do. I'm really proud of the work I put into what I do. If you like what we do, bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, buymeacoffee.com/BOTW, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on all of our socials. We're on Facebook, we're on X, we're on Blue Sky. Head down into the description. There's links to all of those bits and pieces. If you want a 3D printed sign, head into the comments as well. You can check out 3D Lee. If you want some graphics done over the summer, hunt up Max Van Mullen. Max is just alarming. For a 17-year-old, he's just the most well-adjusted person I've ever met, and he is terrifyingly good at so many things. Yeah, and there we are. Ultimately, like I said, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and that's it. Curtain down will come in a couple of days. We will officially end the 24-25 season at Banners on the Wall. I don't know necessarily, do I need to make it an audio-visual piece or not, but we will close the door on this season. And then ever forwards and together. Be happy. And if you can't be happy, then wherever you are, please do whatever you can to be safe. Take time this summer to relax and just be safe wherever you are and enjoy it. As my friend Scotty Woz would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying stay safe, and so long till next time. I'll see you in a month. Enjoy what you do. And as I tell people, invest in your passions and you'll never be poor. Disagreement is not disaster as long as you find a way to learn from it. Failure is not bad. Have your red lines. And try and enjoy it. The time is short. Look after yourselves, everyone. Wednesday the 28th of May, 8 PM, off-season special number 1. We'll see you then. Unless something crazy happens.